All right, good evening, everyone. And after a long break, welcome back to the Fallout mod for HOI4 Old World Blues. Um, I've got a backlog of Dominions and Phoenix Point content that I've been saving up, but given we're in the middle of the US election, I wanted to be able to comment on it during a video, and I can't exactly do that with old content. So I thought I'd introduce you to the much updated version of the Old World Blue mod, and we're going to do so um, not by playing the Republic of the Rio Grande, who was our aborted playthrough last time, where I had just gotten started at the time that my computer melted down. We might return to the RIG if people are interested, but today I'm going to introduce you to one of the most interesting minor nations that we've seen introduced in this new patch, which covers basically Texas and a huge swath in the United States, as you'll see when I load in. The Twin Mothers. And I've chosen Twin Mothers because, one, it's not particularly overpowered. You can see we're a small player in a very large neighborhood with Caesar's Legion and Lanius's cohort to our south as like major threats. They've got some very interesting mechanics. They've got a good story to them, which we're going to explore as we go through their opening events. And I just think they're going to be an interesting challenge while at the same time having the late game potential that I like in every game, whether I'm playing HOI4, whether I'm playing Dominions. I like a little bit of late game potential in whatever I play. And in this case, it's because we have some technological sophistication that we can draw on. Now, straight off, I'll just zoom out so you can see the map before we load in. You can see that the map for this game has been dramatically expanded by the recent update, and a number of nations have been broken up and made a lot more complex. For example, the Texan Brotherhood and Lone Star, so this Texas Economic Community has been added. A whole swath of new mutant nations has been added. There have been modifications all over the place. Caesar's Legion, Ceasar's Legion, as they would say, has been broken down into a lot of constituent parts and made a lot more complex and significantly upgraded, and now relies more on puppets and has a more interesting, shall we say, event chain up to its potential civil war. And they're going to be a clear and present danger through Lanius's cohort to us up here in the Twin Mothers. So let's get this one started. I won't change any of the settings, but here we go. So we'll go through a little bit of the lore, and then I'll get the nation set up, and then I'll walk you through my opening strategy, and we'll go from there once this loads in. So the Twin Mothers, just in a sense, it's kind of two. There's two elements to this nation. It's tribals meets tech in a significant way, and the reason is what we're ruling over here, down here, are the tribal lands of the Twin Mothers people. So we'll get our divisions together, organize them, give them generals, etc. I don't think we have any field marshals at the start, so we're going to have to wait until we can promote one. Done. And you can instantly see we've got a bunch of tribal warriors who are using recurve bows, wooden recurve bows, and then we have units of heavy lifter and protectron bots and more protectrons. So lots of light combat robots and then tribal warriors armed with really, really primitive weapons. And you can see that if you go into the tech tree as well, that our primary line is actually tribal style weapons. And indeed, we have access to the tribal tech tree, which is something that's been added relatively recently, which is designed to give primitive nations an ability to adapt to fighting higher tech nations. But at the same time, we've got access to, like, we could go down the laser route. We start with basic robotics technology. Why do we do that? Well, let's do our focuses and find out, but quickly, let's just get our research set first. And as usual, I'm going to go research speed. I'm going to go manpower. I'm going to go, is there a, yep. We can go warrior training. And for industry, I'm going to go multi-purpose equipment because it's a nice quick one. Free civilian factories. I'm going to open with another civ. I like building civilian factories at the start just so you can scale. Do we have any open spots? We do. We have exactly one down here in the fields. So you can see we're going to be short on building spots. You cannot realistically turtle and become super powerful as this nation. We'll disable these backstory decisions. We don't need to hear them. I don't want to know much about the followers. I'll do that manually if I need to. I'll turn most of this stuff off. Trade routes and an actual monetary economy are another big feature of this update, by the way. You now actually have a physical military budget. that goes up as you recruit more units, and you can spend surplus bottle caps that are basically like your dollar currency on stuff, and you can save it or spend more of it based on how much you spend your army. And you can change this wages law for political power every 140 days. It costs a little bit of PP, but you can vary from you have basically no organization, you have crappy attack, but you have 90% expense rate, or you're spending more, but your army is gaining more experience, your recruitable population factor goes up. This, I think, has been significantly, or at least slightly nerfed since when it first came out. When it first came out, it cost nothing to swap to this in terms of political power, and it was way overpowered. So I would just swap from paying my troops absolutely nothing when I was at peace to suddenly saying, hey, everyone, you're in the army now. We're going to pay big dollars in exchange for you to serve a little bit more. We can't justify any wars at the start, can we? No. So I think that's going to be that. The only other thing we'll do is let's build some canoes and some longboats just to establish a little bit of a navy. I'm going to say let's build. I don't think it matters much, does it? We're going to build them all in the Twin Mothers itself. So we'll get a few of those up. Military construction. I've got a couple of recurve bows and then some robots as well. I'm happy with that at the start. We're going to need some army experience before we can adjust these templates. Let's finally look at our templates. What have we got? Oh, we can do better than that. So the good thing is this is an 18 combat width, so we only have to add one more stack of infantry to get it up to 20 combat width, but then we'll need to add support companies to make this useful. Our robot companies are 12 with all lights and 15 with light heavies. We'll probably eventually get these up to like 20 combat width with support units, noting that we'll be limited by energy cell capacity in terms of how many robots we can maintain. And as I said, I'm pretty sure, yeah, we are peaceful and we can't justify anyone at the start. So what I'll do is I'll roll through these initial events. That'll give me an opportunity to talk through what this nation is and who we are. But remember, you're looking at a tribal people right here. I've already played that. Okay. So, you're instantly like, who is this Diana Stone person that you're now reading about? You can read this if you want. Hopefully the resolution is high enough. Well, so Diana Stone. Fallout is full of really, really dark figures, actually. Dark, tragic figures, people who were very morally bankrupt. The entire leadership of Vault-Tec, it's implied the presidential leadership of the time. It doesn't look like there were many inspirational leaders anywhere. The military-industrial complex, Robert House, all these people in Fallout look like really morally dubious figures. Diana Stone is one of the people who was in the lore for the cancelled Fallout 3 game, Van Buren, I believe. These mod creators like drawing on cancelled lore to fill in gaps. So she was an MIT graduate, intelligent, and she actually had a problem with this idea of there being a stigma against morality. This idea that people are adopting a attitude of we have to do whatever it takes in order to beat the communists, with no view of the fact that the more they did that, the more they were surrendering some of the morals and the conceptions that made America great. So she was not a fan. She wasn't a fan of Vault-Tec. She wasn't a fan of Robco, the Big MT, so Big Mountain. That's the Big Mountain research base. Those of you who played Fallout New Vegas will know these guys very well, and they're in the game actually now. They're a secret path. So spoilers, they're in now, but I won't talk more about them this episode. I might talk about them in later ones. So she instead this pre-war scientist, Diana Stone, signed up with Greenway Hydroponics, and to try and get a morally acceptable sort of course of employment. And this is more her remembering, I suppose, what her path was, how she went down it. But the key is she's sort of negatively remembering Brown and a number of the other figures from the Fallout series who had their own sort of dark end of the world plans. Then she mentions the fact that she was given a cancer prognosis. So the weight of the world, particularly in the darker side of the 2070s, where the world is going to hell in a handbasket, the war is escalating, academia is being purged, and she gets a cancer diagnosis. So she's kind of crushed at that point. Anyway, we get 50 political power from that, and we're going to take Fate Gave Me a Bad Hand to get more of our lore. We're not going to go and rush and spend the political power right away. There's a couple of things that might be useful. I'm just going to go through them. Here we are. Here's another good bit of the lore. So, the nursery. I've been talking about Twin Mothers. Twin Mothers is your tribal heartland when you're playing Twin Mothers. But there's also the nursery. The nursery is, I believe, up here somewhere. Here. The nursery is not within your existing boundaries. It is a hidden bunker complex which is only connected to your land by a complex series of like tunnels, hidden passages, etc. And whereas this is your tribal heartland where you actually rule, Diana herself is in paradise, concealed in this wonderful automated bunker called the nursery, which is capable of producing robots, maintaining high technology, and is sort of an oasis of pre-war technology. She calls it a Garden of Eden in paradise itself. And one of the interesting concepts of the Twin Mothers is you get access to all these resources, even though you don't own the state. That doesn't go to these guys, Black Canyon, who are basically a gang, which is good because Paradise is one of the best provinces that I've seen in the game in terms of resource output. So the nursery is where we ourselves are located. Do I need to be doing anything here? Yeah, I need to be drilling these guys. We'll put them on a front later. Anyway, Fate gave me a bad hand. Okay, so here she says she stopped her she stopped most of her productive work when she got a cancer diagnosis, which says she was going to pass away. Sort of understanding. She says everyone turned on her in a sense. They went from looking at her as someone with immense potential to someone who was doomed, could have been great, but was going to be destroyed by fate. So her boss at Greenway Hydroponics sees a bit of an opportunity here. Reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a set of technical documents. And they talk about the idea of using a supercomputer and a human brain in hybrid. The Fallout universe has some completely artificial intelligences, which go manifestly insane. It has the robo-brains, which are human brains in robot bodies, that go insane because they're usually taken from, like, psychopathic criminals that are experimented on, drugged, and then put in a machine that's designed to, like, coach them towards aggression. But here, Diana Stone is offered the opportunity to be implanted in a Zax supercomputer. And she describes the difficulty of waking up and dealing with the fact that she no longer has a sense of tactile touch, she can't feel a breeze, she is a consciousness without the ability to feel and manipulate the way a person could, but at the same time, she has this immense vision, perception, understanding. She's dealing with the fact that she is now a supercomputer. And thus, we've revealed the first interesting part of the lore of this nation, which is you are a tribe, sure, but your ruler, Diana, is a pre-war scientist whose brain has been merged with a supercomputer concealed in the nursery. And the nursery is designed to hold on to and harbor samples of pre-war flora and potentially fauna to eventually form the basis of recreating the world. And you're probably getting a sense of one of the reasons why I like this nation straight away. It's because if I was to describe their overarching theme, it's that it's a little more hopeful. It's that it's a little more hopeful than a lot of the nations in this game. And their special mechanics, which we'll get to later, are actually about terraforming, transforming the land, and eventually, if you go the right way, actually establishing, depending on which moral route you choose, a quite benevolent regime in the wasteland. So, she becomes a supercomputer, and she interacts with Derek and gets placed into the nursery. However, Derek, so her boss, has this plan whereby there's a nearby vault, and he wants to take control of the Zax that controls that vault, Vault 29, where this tribal species, well, no, this tribal group, rather, is going to be kept. His philosophy, Derek's philosophy is essentially that we could create he would create a primitivist, I'm going into the law here, he would create a primitivist society that would be able to endure the low-tech environment that would exist after the bombs fell. However, to do that, he'd manipulate their culture in some quite damning ways. Diana notices that the people, as she intervenes in the vault, that she begins to be worshipped, and she decides that instead of manipulating this culture, she's going to manipulate it in a slightly different way. She's going to reveal herself. She's going to be taken on as a leader or as potentially as a deity. But in exchange, she's going to try and elevate and preserve this particular group of people. I'm just going to check my trade routes here. So you get one trade route now from every trade node on the map you control. And I'm pretty sure we've got the best one we do. Okay. As trade nodes become relevant, I'll take you through them. All right, so we've done our 3 introductory focuses, and now I can introduce you to the focus tree. Twin Mothers has a focus tree that would put a vanilla HOI4 nation to absolute shame. Paradox does not do focus trees like this particularly much. And it is deep, it has choices, you can have multiple playthroughs, and we're going to discuss, before we talk about what choices we're going first, the core choice. The core choice of Twin Mothers is right down the center here. And it has to do with Lanius's cohort. So Lanius, Legate Lanius, who is from Fallout New Vegas, is going to lead this super expansionist wing of Ceasar's Legion. Eventually they come north, leaving you outgunned, outmatched, outnumbered, and he threatens, and at some point he will threaten to invade. And you can take 3 routes at that point. You can pay them off, which means you become a little bit okay with slavery, you trade with them, you tolerate their raiders, you bribe them, pay them off, and then either through that route or, I believe, straight away, you can actually sell out to Caesar's Legion and try and position yourself as a god within Caesar's pantheon. You can become a goddess of war. You can start your own cult. You can integrate robots into Caesar's Legion. You can get romantically involved with Lanius, despite the fact you're a computer, establish a cult, and then go from there, potentially healing Caesar and being one of the most powerful elements of the Legion. Or, if you're a glutton for punishment, you love hard mode in HOI4, or you're okay with losing, because this route includes allowing you to lose, you can go upholding your ideals. And upholding your ideals prepares you to fight a desperate defensive war against the odds against Lanius's cohort. So you evacuate your people, supplies, you call in favors from everywhere, you fight, and then either you win, in which case you go on a nation building path, or if you lose, there's this entire path that allows you basically to flee with your people and resources, rebuild yourself in the nursery, so outside your existing national bounds, get a whole bunch of vengeance modifiers on the wasteland, and then try and counter-invade from your new home. So those are your 2 big options when you're dealing with Sanctuary. You can pay them off, you can join Caesar's Legion, or you can try and fight it out. And if you fight it out, you can choose, in inverted commas, between winning and losing. On the 2 sides, you've got 2 big trees. One relates to how Diana interacts with Vault 29, her tribe, also her people. And the one on the left is how she interacts with developing the nursery, which is the center of your super high technological development. This has the terraforming bonuses, where when you core territories, you're actually improving nature there. It has a whole bunch of super high-tech genetic experiments. You can see here actually bringing back pre-war species to an extent, getting DNA samples and caching them from other areas. And over here, it's about gearing up your tribe and also controlling Vault 29. This is the Vault 29 branch, this is the village branch, and then eventually it's about dealing with threats from the wasteland. Finally, under all of those, building a society is if you succeed and you create a large empire, you can start actually nation building, which is something no one, well, not no one, most people don't seem to bother with in Fallout. Diana decides that if she becomes big enough, it's about providing healthcare, organizing labor, limiting the number of raiders in the populace by reducing the number of illicit firearms, re-establishing education, getting a constitution, and you can actually eventually create a coherent nation. I haven't done any of this yet. It just looked really interesting, which is why I thought I would do it tonight. So, to begin with, I think I'm going to go, what do I need in order to get the research slot? So I've already looked at these a little bit. The research slots are down this end, which means going nursery, repository, and then I need a whole bunch of DNA samples. And I believe the DNA samples mostly come from this side. There's also the Vault 29 options to get a whole bunch of computing power, which is also interesting. Computing power and satellites are two other unique mechanics. How many unique mechanics does this nation have? I don't know. Many. I'm just checking where all the DNA samples are. But I think the big takeaway here is, unless there's something I'm really missing, we should go down the right-hand side first. Yep, I think that is what we're going to do. So we're going to go my children first. So Diana has this modifier here, the nursery. It covers her two unique mechanics. She has computational strength, which is how much computing power she has available to operate herself and everything she interacts with. Gives you political power, max factories and state production efficiency, and also unlocks certain focuses as your computational strength goes up. Satellite networks are all about decryption and controlling your air force. You increase that by getting more satellites through decisions, but you lose a percentage of the satellites you have every turn. So again, we are a nation that has an army that uses bows, but also we have a command satellite network, and our leader is a goddess whose brain is inside a supercomputer. You can understand why this is pretty damn awesome. I'm looking for anyone who gives me political power. Who would it be? Wouldn't be chief of the army, would it? It would be, what, economic or cultural advisor? Because political power is always going to win out for me as like the first. Yep, can't get that. Okay, daily political power gain plus 0.1. I'll take that. There's some good non-core manpower and monthly population. Ooh, that's a lot of manpower right there. But let's start with the political power because we can always use more of it. I'm not too worried about the caps at the moment, so let's get on to the focus. While we're doing that, we'll analyze the neighborhood a little bit. So, no divisions in basic training, easy. Let's just, so when we can, let's just do that. And it will train them up when it has the capacity to do so. So we're surrounded by a few powers. Geez, my technology, oh, that's right, that's my fast technology first. So work assignments versus workers needed. One of these has recruitable population factor, the other doesn't. It's more about factory output. But you know, I believe in work assignments. I believe in telling people what their objectives are, not you can rock up to work whenever and do whatever you want. No, everyone's got an objective. You can work flexibly, but you got to get your job done, like minimum. Otherwise the system rewards those who aren't exactly in it for the right reasons. Do I want any of this early on? What am I going to want? Probably going to want more manpower. I'm probably going to want better organization at some point. I'm probably going to want to improve my trade law to get more research speed, which is what that would do. I think I can transition off. Peaceful and prosperous. I'm not sure what's blocking me from doing so. I'll figure that one out in a bit, because that one would be a good one to transition off. but I'm considering getting some construction speed maybe, but I'm not producing that much at the moment. Economy law cost and trade law cost minus 25% might in fact end up being a saving. But probably only if we change them often, and I'm not sure we're going to be changing them often. And these don't look particularly expensive. I also don't want to change any of those down there particularly. Oh boy, making me question. Do we want to go oracle.exe? What are the other options? Division defense, that could be useful against Lanius. Division attack and defense, that's a decent leader. Army experience. Do I have anyone who will give me just a tick of army experience per day? No. No, I guess that would be just too easy. So I'm going to have my shit templates for a while up until I can start exercising. My exercising finishes training up my guys and I actually start getting experience. None of those interest me, and I definitely don't want Air Force or anything like that. Don't want to change that, don't want to change that. Interesting. I think it might be recruitable population factor and monthly population. Every little bit helps. And we're going to ask the followers. They might cause problems for us later, but I'm going to ask for a civilian workshop, which hopefully they will produce for us. And I'm going to keep getting that population up because manpower is so important in the Fallout mod. There's so few people alive. As opposed to the real world where we have lots of people. We're just going to take the income. Stonks! There we are, bonus bottle cap. So, I've noticed that you can have big plus and negative swings in the bottle caps, particularly in the early game. I'm not sure if that's because as technology and situations change, you have like more or less variability, but certainly at the start, it seems like those random events that affect your income happen a lot more often. But I'm happy just to have a little bit of a buffer in case I need to change my wage law later on. What am I going to get now? Maybe start tribal. You know, I'm going to start the tribal techs because they can be useful, and it looks like we're on to the next national focus. So, there's two ways we can go here. We can start improving the village. So, political power, huge amount of it. This tree here is about getting your people, men and women both, ready for conflict. Diana is associated with female warriors, but her armies include both. So this is a bunch of research gains and unlocks some stuff on the other side of the tree, but has some prerequisites. This develops your land and gets you DNA samples, which you need to unlock your research slots, which is very important. But I'm considering going over here first because there is an option over here to get a whole crap ton of computing power as an option. And I'm just wondering whether or not that and then the extra off-map arms workshops is worth it, or whether or not I'm best to go and get what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you need to really hunt around to get your research slots. And they're not super useful in and of themselves, but you don't need to research them until you've researched samples. I still think I want to go get computing power, and then we'll get our gene samples. So let's do Vault 29, and it'll tell us a little bit more about the vault. Our neighbours, by the way, are a mixture of basically tribals and settlers. So sundogs down here, scorpions bite. Who else have we got? Archdiocese of Santa Fe, who will be eaten very soon, I am sure. The Navajo start the game aligned with Caesar's Legion. The reservation does not, and unlike in the lore, so they don't have their tree yet, they do not have a nuke firing cannon. In the lore, the reservation has basically a artillery piece capable of firing nukes on the reservation, but they don't have that here. So it looks like we're surrounded by relatively minor gangs, but with pretty ugly borders. Now, if I was to describe my strategy here, here's what I'm thinking. Lanius's cohort is going to be the primary threat. At some point, they're going to eat the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, but they shouldn't immediately come for us. If they go that way, there's this 2 province. You can get the border down to 2 provinces, 1 plains and 1 hills. This would be defensible. If I put some outposts and some fortresses up, like I could probably hold that and start bleeding out their manpower. But there's no end game there unless I have expanded a little bit. So what I want to do is I can't go west. What I really want to do is, using maybe naval invasions, make my way north, try and eat up, despite this terrible territory, Circle Junction, maybe the Claim Jumpers, and work my way up to the point where I can actually take Paradise and link up my empire. Because at the moment, my capital, in inverted commas, is in someone else's territory, which just doesn't sit right with me. I'm not sure if it sits right with anyone else. But there it is. I don't think I need more manpower just yet. I don't need these designers. Do I want major business for construction speed? I'm considering the construction speed across the board. Yeah, it's worth it. I'm going to want a lot of political power, by the way, to core territory, so I get more manpower and resources from it. But at the moment, may as well get my economy set up. I think I want to be open to traders or promote caravan companies as well, just because the research boost is so worth it. Like 9%, and there's a whole bunch of extra factory output and good stuff in there. And I don't think we're exactly short on resources. Yeah, no, we're exporting more than we're importing. Like, we're good. Unless we get a bunch more arm factories, we can't really use our resources. About to be finished Vault 29, and we're going to instantly go over to the matter of Zax 29, which is the supercomputer, the AI that was running the Vault. Not us, but was running the Vault that our tribals came from. And it's its own independent entity, although it follows our instructions and we have its command codes, etc. And the choice the game gives you is, do you want to say Zax 29 is your friend, give it increased autonomy, and let it steward your tribe, so it becomes quite a powerful advisor, and you gain base stability, you lose a little bit of war support? Or do you want to reduce its autonomy, gaining war support and losing stability, which is usually a bad choice, and then just eat all of its computational power, merge it, use its systems to just make Diana more powerful, and gain 20 computational power, which to me is the way to go. We don't need to trust another AI. We're already an AI. There only needs to be one. So there's the plan. I'll let that roll. Hope everyone's having a good night, by the way. And we're back. I know it's been a little bit of a tense one. I'm going automated warfare, by the way, because I foresee being a robot-based nation. So even though we don't have a huge amount of XP, I think that is probably the way to go. Do I want to exercise just for the XP? I probably just want to get more units. So let's just keep producing. We're waiting on all sorts of robots for our robot units, but when you have no military factories, like, that is to be expected. Let's begin a scavenging program. Need to remember to do this when it comes time to change our laws, by the way, for economic and conscription. You can pay political bribes. It's relatively cheap, and it'll get you to pass laws through. I don't know, what sort of parliament does a tribe ruled by a supercomputer that is claiming to be a god have? No, I don't know on that one. I know you guys in America are electing your legislature and executive right now. Hope you guys are all safe and have done your bit for the process and are now waiting it out. Spare a small thought to those of us overseas who have the fate of our nations and our world determined by voters in another nation overseas. But best of luck to you, and I really hope you all stay safe and that things turn out well enough. What are we going next on the research slots? Combat language, maybe? We're already getting automated warfare. We're not going to go special forces straight away, I don't think. Actually, we need tribal scout kit, in which case I want tribal scout kit. Because special forces are not that expensive in equipment, but really bloody good. So let's get the wasteland Amazons deployed.
Haven't had a decent meal in
Merge, and let's do a exercise to get them trained up. I think our next one is going to be... I'm wondering if our next one is either robots or... I don't know. It's a lot of PP to spend on relatively minor research gains. I think we might instead just get the economy law going, which we can do with political bribes, which I would never endorse in the real world, but in Fallout are a fantastic way to go. Anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to progress through a couple of focuses. I'm going to do some initial tech, and we're going to come back when something interesting starts to happen, because I feel like you're across where we've started now. I've told you what my initial pathway is going to be. I'm going to cut down to assuming direct control, and I will see you when something interesting happens relatively shortly. Alright, so we're back, and we're back because Lanius is eating his first nation. The Muscalero nation are disappearing. Rip them. That's the first people that Lanius has taken out. They obviously will not be the last. I'm going to keep going with the tribal tree. I'm just waiting for assuming direct control to finish. The interesting thing about tribal nations, by the way, is they get this tribal tree, which reflects like learning how to use asymmetrical tactics against more advanced enemies. So IEDs, covered volleying fire. There's mechanisms for using like anti-tank like rifles in tribal fighting styles, and it's actually quite a reasonably powerful tree. It nerfs your income, but it also takes off your expenses. And the idea is it simulates your tribal advantages and lets you stand up a little bit more in a way HOI4 otherwise struggles to imitate against more scientifically advanced nations. The difference with the Twin Mothers, I think, is you are also a technologically advanced nation. You can unlock technology levels through your focus tree. So I'm thinking with the buffs from the tribal tree to reflect our tribal nature, plus the ability to give those super talented and rough and ready tribals military training, robot support, and laser rifles, we're probably going to be pretty strong. My agency is created, and I have assumed direct control. Fantastic. And Ouroboros has declared war on the dry blowers. Okay, so that's these guys up here. Hecate. I'm pretty sure she's related to us in some way. Let's check. Woman May Shades, Mortal Mantle of Divinity. Oh, she's the last of the Twisted Hairs, so they're mentioned in the Caesar's Legion lore. Okay, so they're a tribe. We've helped her out. They're from a tribe that was damaged by the Legion. We've given her a place in the Pantheon. She's off there doing her own thing, conquering people. Cool. Oh, and she gets her own special, unique focus tree. Awesome. Cool. Alright, so we'll keep an eye on her because I'm pretty sure that their story, Hecate's story, is related to that of the Twin Mothers. And unless they get in our way, I'm interested to see how that plays out. Now, I've taken assuming direct control. I'm considering going for the arms factories, like diverting in order to get arms technology first and then going for the research slot, just because it would represent like a 20-something% boost in our manufacturing. And right now, I need guns because I need units because eventually Lanius is going to come for us. So I'm considering taking that diversion and then picking up the DNA we need in order to go for the research slot. So either way, our initial choices are pretty much... Yeah, let's do it. Just make sure there's nothing else here that I don't have. Yeah, I have 40 computational power now, so I can do Diana's Golden Light. We ate the other Zach, so we have a bunch of computing power now, which is now giving us plus 10% political power, factories, and production efficiency. Love it. Anyway, once again, I'm going to disappear. Not sure how much longer I'll drag this video for. It's kind of like a stream, but without the audience. And I will rejoin you soon. Okay, we're back. We're back because I'm about to finish my military factories, and also Lanius is killing the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, which is great considering we still can't expand or do anything. Now, what we're really going to be gambling on is how long is it going to take for him to do his respective focuses in order to come after us before we have to make our decision. But once he's done this, what I do know is it can probably trigger the decision that allows us to make our choice. So I'm going to be cutting the video relatively soon.
Hey.
Our army is still relatively weak. I did finish one extra medium robot division, but Lanius is pretty heavy. I've started decrypting his cipher as well, but it'll be a while. I'm going to keep upgrading because I'm hoping the advantage that would come from having cracked their codes would be useful if we have to fight them. But here's going to be my question. Actually, I have two questions going out of today. First is, do you want me to mix this in with my Phoenix Point and Dominion stuff? I'm going to play it anyway. The question is, do I record when I play and put it up? Is this something you find interesting after the abandoned RRG playthrough? Because this is a really interesting mod. I'd love this to get some visibility. The second thing is, if we do keep going, do you want to see the pay Lanius off while we keep expanding? Do you want to see the join the Legion and become a goddess of Warpath? Or do you want us to see us stand up for our ideals and watch me fight a defensive war and then actually try and beat big, bulky Lanius's cohort? Or even play the route where you lose, your capital gets overrun, so the game gives you the nursery up here and more troops, and you fight the war from there and eventually try and make your way back down south. So it'd be really good to know what people's preferences are in terms of proceeding. We've got our extra military factories now, which means we can go tribal scout gear because I want special forces. And then I need probably extra guns, and then I'm going to want probably demolitions as my first sort of equipment, but I'm going to need more arms factories. But those extra 3 really helped, as will the extra political power that we're going to get from this focus there. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're fans of the mod. No, I've been a bit quiet. I'm getting ready for a bit of a surge of content over the next week, as I try and show off what I've been saving up and preparing. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to set some text and then probably park this one for the moment. What our plan is going to be is essentially readiness for Lanius, and then as soon as we're able to, we're going to start justifying wars on our neighbours, particularly those that have started their own wars and thus are easier to justify on. And once we know who we're going to be able to attack, we'll start justifying and hopefully be able to expand a little before Lanius decides to move on our fortified area or force us to join him. And if we do join him, well, that'll be an interesting playthrough. Curb stomping across the wasteland, but I'm not sure that's really what we're all about. What do I want here? I want factory output. And let's keep land doctrine rolling with human targeting firmware. All good. Prosperous village will be done soon. Texan Brotherhood's proceeding. So Lanius is getting nice and large. You can see Lanius has a huge focus tree. The one we're really going to be worried about is this one down here, a false goddess. That, I believe, is the one that causes the negative interaction with us. So there we go. Oh, that's one last thing I can show you. Wardens versus hangdogs. So among the many new minor nations that were inserted, the hangdogs are a gang that were put over here around so-called Dog City. Dog City has a computer program in it that was designed to keep order before the war. It's a security profile. So this is another Zax mainframe. And when you play as them, if you choose to activate the box, which is the dormant terminal hosting that computer program, you can choose to play as Warden and try and restore order. So going Hello America and then trying to basically restore order and refound the I think it's refound. I think Colorado is an option. Anyway, you can reform a state essentially and found an alliance, or you can stay with the gang, come out on top, and then go on a bit of a conquest. So not half bad. There's a lot of powers now that can create new states or bodies. Where is another one? last patrol up here. So this is a couple of ghouls that were in the National Guard. They can refound Oklahoma, I think. Yeah, the first election of the Republic of Oklahoma. So they are a bunch of holdouts from the old days. Like me, a relic of maybe some of the slightly better elements of the old world. The Texan Brotherhood and Lone Star and... Oh, there is no Lone Star. Lone Star's dead. Lone Star got killed by this gang. Okay, well, I guess the Texans can form Texas through the provisional statehood focus. So you can see as they expand, the number of nations that have the ability to refound states of the old Union is increasing, and the complexity of the post-war nations there is increasing as well. For our part, we can't refound a state, but we can create a realm that has education and healthcare and rights, or we can become a religious cult aligned with the Legion, where we send our robots and our Amazon warriors to fight for our glory. Great to hear what you'd like to see me play. Otherwise, hope you're all taking care, and see you all soon.